Chapter 1. The Stairs. There was something in the basement. There had always been something in the basement. "Don't go in the basement, Willa." Her father's voice, same tone as "don't touch the table saw without the guard on," and "don't eat the leftover curry, it's been there since March." Practical Gerald Briggs instructions for practical problems. She had obeyed. 21 years of obedience. Good girl, don't ask questions. Don't open the door. Definitely don't think about why the pipes sound like breathing at 2 a.m., because pipes do things, Willa. Old house. Pipes breathe. Pipes did not breathe. She had known this. She had obeyed anyway. When her father disappeared 3 years ago, no note, no call, just a Thursday morning when his truck was gone and his coffee mug was still warm in the sink, she obeyed the standing instructions. Don't go in the basement. She put in earbuds at night. She told herself the sounds were the furnace. It's the furnace, Willa. The furnace is doing furnace things. Very normal furnace behavior. 6 weeks ago, the power went out. The circuit breaker was in the basement. Call an electrician. It was 11 p.m. Electricians charge triple for night calls. She was a carpenter. She could flip a breaker. Her father had said, "You can fix anything in this house, Willa, except the disposal. Don't touch the disposal." He'd never said don't fix the circuit breaker. She went down the stairs. She found the breaker. She flipped the switch. The flashlight swept left, and there was a man chained to the foundation wall of her house. Sitting. Dark matted hair. Skin with the faint luminescence of old ivory. Eyes the color of dark honey that caught the beam and did not blink. She screamed. She dropped the flashlight. She ran. She made it to the kitchen, locked the basement door, sat on the floor, and made a list. 1. There is a man in the basement. 2. He is chained to the wall. 3. He is not dead. 4. His eyes did not blink. 5. My father put him there. 6. Call the police. And say what? My missing father chained a man with no heartbeat to the foundation? They'd section me before I finished the sentence. 7. I need to buy milk. Number 7 is not relevant, but I am losing my grip on things, and milk feels manageable. The second night, she came back with a better flashlight and a hammer. "Who are you?" he said. "I'm the person with the hammer." "That is not a name." "Willa, who are you?" "1 question per night, Willa. That was mine. You may go." "I'm not. You can't just. This is my basement." "And yet I am the one who has been in it for 3 years. I believe residency confers certain privileges." 3 years doesn't make this your basement. 3 years makes it my primary residence. I have not filed taxes on it, but I suspect there are forms. You're chained to a wall. I have had worse accommodations. When? I believe we established that you are permitted 1 question per night. You have now asked 4. You haven't answered any of them. I answered your first. You are welcome. Good night. She went. But she came back the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that, because something was very wrong with her, and she was going to need to address that eventually. Willa Briggs, 24 years old, brings coffee to a chained vampire every night. Hobbies include carpentry, lying, and making terrible decisions about basements. If I wrote this in a journal, the journal would stage an intervention. Night 3. She brought the thermos for the first time. He looked at it. "I cannot drink that," he said. "It's for me. I need something to hold." "You are holding a flashlight." "I need something warmer to hold." "Then you have come to the wrong basement." Night 5. His question was whether anyone was looking for him. She said she didn't know. He said, "I see," and the two words contained approximately 400 years of experience with being let down by people who were supposed to be paying attention. Night 7, she asked, breaking the one-question rule, which she had never agreed to in the first place. Are you a vampire? What gave it away? The not blinking, the cold skin, the fact that you've been in a basement for 3 years without food? Those are reasonable observations. So, yes? Yes. Though I would prefer you not reduce 600 years of existence to a single noun. What would you prefer? I would prefer a great many things, Willa, beginning with not being chained to a foundation wall. We may work down the list from there. Now it was night 31. She was carrying a thermos of coffee down the stairs at 11:14 p.m. on a Tuesday. Good evening, said the vampire king chained to the foundation wall of her house. Evening. She sat on the bottom step, unscrewed the thermos, took a sip. Too hot. 31 nights and I still can't time the walk from the kitchen to the basement. This is not a skill I anticipated needing. This is not a skill anyone anticipates needing. There is no course for this. He watched her. He always watched her. Matthias Winter was taller than seemed reasonable for someone who had been sitting on a concrete floor for 3 years. When he stood, and he stood every night when she arrived, court training too deep to be erased by captivity, the top of his head nearly grazed the ceiling. The chains were blackened iron, thick as her wrist, bolted through the foundation at 4 points. 6 feet of movement. Enough to pace 4 steps. Not enough to reach the stairs. You're early tonight, he said. Traffic was light. You live upstairs. The stairs were light. The corner of his mouth moved, not a smile. The ghost of where a smile had been, once, in a century when he'd had things to smile about. You are in a good mood tonight, he said. I am in a Tuesday night mood. It is neither good nor bad. It is Tuesday. I have lost track of which day is Tuesday. It's the one after Monday. I have also lost track of Monday. I have been in a basement for 3 years, Willa. The days have merged into a single undifferentiated unit of time. That's bleak. It was bleak until approximately 6 weeks ago. Now it has a schedule. The schedule involves coffee and a woman who argues with me about the nature of ownership. I was not arguing about the nature of ownership. You were. You said, this is my basement. I said, 3 years of residency confers privileges. That is a property law dispute. I have been involved in several. My question, he said. Go ahead. He stilled his hands. She'd noticed this on night 3. Not relaxation, but a deliberate stopping. A predator deciding what to do with the next second. What, he said, is a Netflix? Willa choked on her coffee. I have been hearing it through the ceiling for approximately 3 years. A voice says, are you still watching? I would like to know who is asking and why they are concerned. It's a streaming service. Explain streaming. You pay monthly and you can watch shows and movies on your television, or your phone, or your laptop. You pay monthly, he repeated. Yes. For entertainment you do not own. Correct. And at any point this service may remove the entertainment you have paid for. That does happen, yes. Without warning. Usually with about a month's notice. A month. I have waited longer than that for a wine to mature. Okay, but... And everyone does this. Pretty much everyone, yes. And no one has objected? No one has written a strongly worded letter? No one has organized a formal petition? People complain on the internet. I do not know what that is, but I am confident it is insufficient. He looked at the ceiling, then at her, then at the ceiling again. I have been imprisoned for 3 years, he said, and this is somehow the most upsetting thing I have learned. She caught her laugh behind the thermos. He noticed. 600 years of noticing things, and she was somewhere near the top of the filing system now. But he didn't comment. That was your question, she said. It was. Good night, then. Good night, Willa. She stood and climbed the stairs. At the top, she paused. They also raised the price twice while you were down here. Silence from below. Then, with quiet precision, of course they did. She closed the basement door. She locked it. She leaned her forehead against the wood and breathed. There is a vampire king in my basement. My father put him there. I bring him coffee he cannot drink, and he asks me one question a night, and I am running out of reasons not to think about what this means. Chapter 2. The Pattern. Night 9. He asked what year it was. She told him. He was quiet for a long time. I have missed 3 years, he said. Yes. Has anything of consequence occurred? Define of consequence. Wars, plagues, the fall of a significant government, a development in the field of architecture that I would find relevant. There was a whole thing with artificial intelligence. Artificial what? Intelligence, machines that can write and think and… It's complicated. Machines that think. He said it the way someone would say, the castle is on fire. And this is considered progress. By some people. By the machines. They don't have opinions. Then they are not intelligent. They are obedient. I have had obedient servants. Intelligence is when they disagree with you and are occasionally correct. Night 12. He asked if there was still a country called Belgium. Yes, she said. Belgium still exists. Disappointing. What did Belgium do to you? Belgium once sent me a diplomatic envoy to discuss cheese. Willa. A formal envoy. About cheese. I have never recovered. That's 400 years ago. Some wounds do not heal. Night 15. He asked why she kept coming back. Someone has to check the hot water heater. The hot water heater is 4 feet from me. I could check it. Can you read the pressure gauge in the dark? I have been reading your heartbeat from 40 feet away for 6 weeks. I believe I can manage a gauge. He can hear my heartbeat. She thought about every night she'd lain in bed directly above him, pulse doing whatever a pulse does when a person is trying very hard not to think about the fact that there is a vampire under her floor. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Stop listening to my heartbeat, she said. It is the only heartbeat I have heard in 3 years. I am not able to stop. It would be like asking you to stop hearing music. That's not the comforting comparison you think it is. I was not attempting to comfort you. Night 17. He asked about the sound the house made every evening at 6:15. It is a chime, he said, followed by a voice. The voice says, delivery notification. I would like to know what is being delivered and to whom. It's my phone. I ordered a sander online. You ordered a tool from your telephone. Yes. And the tool arrives at your house? In a box, yes. Delivered by whom? A driver from the warehouse. So a stranger knows where you live, knows what you purchased, knows when you are home, and brings it to your door. Yes, that's how it works. And you do not find this alarming? Matthias, 600 million people do this. 600 million people are making a tactical error. Night 19. He asked about her work. Restoration carpentry, she said. Old houses, original molding, the skeletons of buildings that have been standing longer than anyone remembers why. I replace what's rotted, reinforce what's weakened, keep what still holds. He went quiet. When he spoke, his voice had shifted, a 1/4 inch of the controlled version cracking. You rebuild old things, he said. Yes. And you live in an old house. Yes. With something very old in the basement. I see where you're going with this. I am merely observing a thematic consistency. You're calling yourself a fixer-upper. I am calling myself a structural concern in need of assessment. Whether I am worth restoring is a separate question. Night 23. He asked her to read to him. She brought down a murder mystery set in Cornwall, read 2 chapters badly, the detective's voice too high, the suspect's voice too low. Community theater staged by someone who had never been to a community or a theater. The detective is wrong about the alibi, he said when she stopped. How do you know that? I have had 3 years with nothing to do but think. I have become an exceptional detective. Also, the gardener is lying. His soil samples are inconsistent with the timeline. You got that from me reading it badly? I got that from the text. Your reading merely added a layer of dramatic interpretation that the author did not intend, but which I found engaging. Did you just compliment my terrible reading? I complimented your commitment to it. There is a difference. She laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed off the concrete and the washer and the chains. Something in his face cracked, a hairline fracture that wouldn't close. Night 25. He asked what time the sun set that day. 5:47, she said. Why? I used to watch sunsets. Before. Before the basement? Before the 15th century. I have not seen a sunset in 600 years. But I still want to know when they happen. That's really sad, Matthias. It is not sad. It is a fact. I have many facts. Some of them are also sad. The overlap is considerable. Do you want me to describe one? He was quiet. Then, yes. She thought about the sunset she'd seen driving home from the Clearwater job last week. She described it badly. The colors were wrong, the proportions were off. She said orangey pink twice and sort of purple 3 times. That was a terrible description, he said when she finished. I know. Describe another one tomorrow. It'll be just as bad. I am aware. I would still like to hear it. Night 26. She brought a blanket. She couldn't reach him to hand it over, folded it and slid it across the floor. He caught it with his foot, dragged it closer, wrapped it around his shoulders with a dignity that should not have been possible for someone sitting on concrete next to a box of tax returns. Thank you, he said. First time, it sounded like a door he hadn't opened in a very long time. Don't mention it. I will mention it precisely once, which is the amount I just mentioned it, and I will not forget it. It's a blanket, Matthias. It is the first thing anyone has given me in 3 years. I am aware of what it is. Night 29. He asked, Why does your heart beat faster when you lie to me? She went still. I don't lie to you. It just did it again. I have an arrhythmia. You do not have an arrhythmia. I have been listening to your heart for 6 weeks. It is a good heart, steady and strong. It accelerates precisely when you are being untruthful. This is not a medical condition. This is a tell. Maybe I'm just nervous. Nervous is a baseline. Your arrival rate is approximately 82 beats per minute. When you lie, it jumps to 96. When you are telling the truth and also embarrassed, it sits at 87. When you laughed on night 23, it reached 104. You have been counting my heartbeats? I have been counting everything. Your footsteps, your breaths per minute, the exact moment each night when your breathing shifts from walking rhythm to sitting rhythm. I have had 3 years with nothing to count but the hot water heater cycles. Willa. You are more interesting than the hot water heater. That's the lowest bar I've ever cleared. It is not a low bar. The hot water heater is very reliable. She stood up. Good night. I did not ask my question yet. That was a question. That was an observation. My question is, what are you lying to me about? She looked at him from the bottom step, dark honey eyes that did not blink. She could feel him listening to her pulse like it was a confession she hadn't agreed to give. "Everything," she said. "Good night, Matthias." She climbed the stairs, closed the door. Her hands were shaking. Fear or guilt or the dizziness that keeps getting worse. The one I keep blaming on skipped meals and late nights. The gray thing behind my eyes that I do not have a name for yet. Her heart was still beating fast. She knew he could hear it through the floor. Chapter 3. The Name. Godfrey arrived on a Wednesday. Willa opened the front door to find a man in a charcoal suit with the expression of someone who had been having a very bad 3 years and had developed strong opinions about it. "Good afternoon," he said. "My name is Godfrey. I represent a private concern. I am looking for a man who may have visited this property approximately 3 years ago." "What kind of man?" "The kind who is difficult to forget. Tall, dark hair, an unsettling quality about the eyes, the sort that makes you check whether he blinked and then realize he hasn't." Her hand tightened on the doorframe. "Can't help you. You have a lovely home. The foundation work is original, isn't it? Fieldstone. Georgian era, if I'm not mistaken." "Thank you, I'm busy." "Of course. If anything comes to mind, the Marriott on Route 9, room 412. I'm told the continental breakfast is acceptable, though I am managing my expectations." He paused. "They are low expectations. I want to be clear about that." "Noted." "You have paint on your elbow, Miss Briggs." "I'm a carpenter." "Ah, that explains the structural integrity of the porch. I noticed the joinery. It is excellent. Dovetailed, if I'm not mistaken." "You noticed the joinery on my porch. I am 450 years old. I notice everything. It is a curse." He produced a card from his jacket pocket, cream-colored, heavy stock, engraved. "My card, should you require it." She looked at it. It said Godfrey, followed by a phone number. No last name, no title. "Just Godfrey?" "I have found that surnames accumulate complications over the centuries. One is sufficient." He left. Willa watched his car pull away. Dark sedan, immaculate. He noticed the joinery. He noticed the joinery on my porch. My porch joinery was assessed by a 450-year-old vampire in a charcoal suit while I was standing there with paint on my elbow. She went inside, locked the door, and sat on the kitchen floor. That night she went downstairs with the thermos and a feeling like standing at the edge of something she could not see the bottom of. Matthias was on his feet. Tonight it looked less like courtesy and more like bracing. "You had a visitor," he said. "You heard." "I hear everything. Every conversation, every footstep, every time you talk to yourself in the kitchen." "I do not talk to myself in the kitchen." 3 nights ago you said, and I quote, "If I don't buy milk tomorrow, I'm going to lose my mind." You were addressing the refrigerator. "The refrigerator and I have a relationship. It's complicated." You also told the dishwasher it was a disappointment. "The dishwasher is a disappointment. It doesn't dry properly." You have a rich emotional life with your appliances. You had a question. I did. His eyes found hers, and there was something different, an edge, a sharpening, the predator stirring beneath the strategist. "What is your full name?" There it is. The basement felt smaller. The distance between the step and the wall, too much or not enough. "Willa," she said. "Your surname." She could feel her heartbeat in her throat. She knew he could hear it. "Briggs," she said. "Willa Briggs." He did not move. He did not breathe. Not the forgetting to pretend kind, the deliberate kind, a pause that lasted longer than a human would hold. "Briggs," he said. "Yes. Gerald Briggs. My father. I wondered, night 4, when you told me your first name and nothing else. Night 11, when you described your work but not where you grew up. Night 22, when you explained your father had left and your heart rate hit 98. I had a theory. I did not want it confirmed. But you asked. But I asked. She set the thermos on the step, folded her hands in her lap because they were shaking. I know what he did, she said. I know about my mother. What do you know? I know your court killed her. I know she was in the wrong place. I know my father spent the rest of his life planning this. Your father was correct. She hadn't expected that. I was the king, he said, level, not cold. The voice of a man who has decided to show someone what he is and hold it in both hands. The enforcement action was mine, not personally. I did not know your mother's name. I did not know there were civilians in the building. A casualty report crossed my desk, and I signed the acknowledgement, and I moved on. I had been moving on from casualty reports for 400 years. And then you learned her name. After your father chained me here. 3 years to learn what I should have learned before. Margaret Briggs, 34. Picking up a prescription from a pharmacy that shared a wall with a meeting place we were shutting down. Wrong building, wrong hour. He told me it was a car accident, Willa said. A truck running a red light. That's what I grew up believing. Your father lied to you. I killed your mother. Both things are true. Neither of them is your fault. Her eyes were burning. She blinked hard. Why are you telling me this? Because you brought me a blanket. Because you come down here every night. Because you deserve one honest thing from the man your father chained to your foundation. And this is the only honest thing I have. Most people would have started with something less devastating. I am not most people. I am a 600-year-old king chained to a wall. My conversational options are limited. You could have started with the weather. I have not experienced weather in 3 years. You could have lied. I could have. I chose not to. You are the daughter of the man who imprisoned me for your mother's death, and you have brought me coffee every night for a month, and the least I owe you is the truth about why. She reached for the thermos. Her fingers brushed the metal, and her hand slipped. The gray haze, the tremor. The thermos tipped off the step, rolled across the floor, and came to rest against his knee. He picked it up, unscrewed the cap, smelled the coffee with an expression she hadn't seen. Something close to grief or hunger or the memory of a life that included mornings. I cannot drink this, he said. I know. Then why do you keep bringing it? Because you hold it like it matters, and I think you need something that matters. He held it between his chained hands. Steam rose in the cold air. I am going to ask an extra question, he said. Consider it compensation for 3 years of imprisonment. Fine. Will you come back tomorrow night? Her heart did the thing, the 96 beat per minute thing. Yes, she said. That one was true, he said. Chapter 4. The Cost. She dropped a hammer at work. Not a fumble. Her hand opened and the hammer fell and she stared at her fingers. Great, my fingers are doing freelance work now, taking on clients I didn't approve. Dan looked at her from across the workshop. You good? Fine. You've been fine for 2 weeks. You look like you haven't slept in a month. I have a lot going on. Willa. He put down the window sash. You're shaking. She looked at her hands, fine tremor running through her fingers like a current. I need to eat more, she said. You need to eat at all. I watched you skip lunch for the 3rd day in a row. I had a granola bar. You had half a granola bar. You gave the other half to the dog next door. He looked hungry. He's a golden retriever. They always look hungry. That's the whole breed. Dan. Willa. I'm fixing a house. It's complicated. There's a structural issue in the basement. You want help? I can come by Saturday. No. Too fast. She caught herself. No, I've got it. It's old ironwork, bolted into the foundation. I just need to figure out how my father anchored it. Your dad built some weird stuff. You have no idea. She went back to the baseboard. The gray dizziness came 3 times that afternoon. Once while planing, once on the stepladder, once while standing perfectly still, which is a new and unwelcome development. She kept working because that was what Briggs women did. They worked until the working stopped them. That night she went down later than usual, almost midnight. He was standing, but tonight she noticed what she'd been avoiding. He was thinner. The lines of his face sharper, cheekbones more pronounced, shadows deeper. "You are late," he said. "I know. Your heartbeat has been irregular since 4:17 this afternoon. You're counting the time now?" "I have always been counting the time. Your arrival tonight was 46 minutes later than your average. Are you keeping a spreadsheet?" "I do not know what a spreadsheet is, but if it involves the obsessive tracking of data, then yes. I have a very detailed spreadsheet." She sat on the step. She didn't open the thermos. "My question tonight," he said, and his voice dropped. Deeper, a half octave below his usual register, the one that meant the predator was close to the surface. "What is happening to you?" "Nothing. Your pulse has slowed. Not dramatically. Most physicians would not catch it. But I have been listening for 40 nights, and it is weaker than when we began. A thinning, a hesitation at the peak of each beat. I'm tired. You are tired in a way that sleep does not repair. You dropped something today. I heard it through the floor. Your hand opened involuntarily. That is not fatigue. That is systemic. You don't know what systemic means. I know what a body sounds like when it is failing. I have listened to many bodies fail over 600 years. Yours is not failing yet, but it is diminishing. And I need to know why because..." He stopped, redirected. "Because your heartbeat is the only sound I cannot afford to lose." She looked at him. He looked at her. The honesty of it sat between them. "I don't know why," she said. "Your heart says that is true. So what do you think is happening?" "The chains." His gaze dropped to the blackened iron. "They are witch-forged. Do you know what that means?" "My father found a witch." "Your father commissioned a binding that could hold a 600-year-old vampire indefinitely. That requires an anchor, a living source. When your father set the trap, he was the anchor. The chains drew from his proximity. Not enough to kill, enough to sustain. And when he left, the binding searched for the nearest living source. It found one directly above the chains, sleeping in a bed, breathing steadily, heartbeat strong. "Me," she said. "You, for 3 years." She sat very still. 3 years of tiredness I blamed on grief. 3 years of headaches I blamed on stress. 3 years of feeling slightly less, not a metaphor, an actual draining. "Your father knew," Matthias said. His voice had changed, a fury so controlled it sounded like precision. "He knew what the chains would require. He left you here as the anchor, and he did not tell you." "He told me not to go in the basement." "He told you not to go in the basement because if you found me, you might free me. And if you freed me, you would stop dying. He wanted me imprisoned more than he wanted you safe." "You don't know that." "I know what he did." "You know what you did too. Your court killed my mother." "Yes." "So maybe don't lecture me about fathers and safety." He flinched. It was the first time she had ever seen him flinch. A vampire king who had held still through 3 years of captivity, and she'd cracked him with one sentence. "You are right," he said. "That was not mine to say." "No, it wasn't. Willa, free me and the draining stops." "I don't know how." "Your father built this trap. You are a carpenter. You rebuild old things. Find the mechanism." "And then what? You're free. You're a vampire king. I'm the daughter of the man who chained you for 3 years. What happens to me?" Nothing happens to you. How do I know that? Because I have spent 40 nights talking to you. I have heard your heart and counted your breaths and listened to you read badly and laugh once and lie 100 times and tell the truth when it cost you everything. Nothing I am would allow me to harm the person who did those things. That's a lot of words for a man who usually asks one question. I have 3 years of unused words. I am spending them. She was at the bottom of the stairs. He was at the limit of his chains. 4 feet of floor between them. He could not cross, and she would not cross. I need to think, she said. You should. Your heart rate has been elevated for the entire conversation. Stop diagnosing me. I cannot stop. That is the point. I cannot stop hearing you. I cannot stop counting. I cannot stop noticing that you smell like sawdust and paint thinner and something else I have not identified but I think about constantly. Matthias. Coffee. You smell like coffee. That is the 3rd thing. He said it like a man confessing a crime. I cannot drink coffee. I have not been able to for 600 years. But you smell like it, and I have decided this is one of the more significant things that has happened to me. She stared at him. His jaw was tight, the muscles working once, then going still. She turned and went up the stairs. At the top she paused. I'll find the mechanism. I know you will. She closed the door, did not lock it. She did not go down the next night. She was angry. At her father, at Matthias, at herself, at the chains. She lay in bed and she knew he was listening. The second night, she sat at the top of the stairs with her back against the basement door. From below, very quietly. You are on the other side of the door. I'm not coming down. I know. I'm angry at you. I know that also. You said my father wanted you imprisoned more than he wanted me safe. That is a terrible thing to say about someone's father. It is. I should not have said it. But you think it's true. I think what he did is true. What he wanted. I am 600 years old and I still do not know how to separate what people do from what they mean. I have had many centuries to practice and I am not better at it. That's a depressing thing for a 600-year-old to admit. I have many depressing admissions. Would you like them chronologically or by theme? Neither. I would like you to stop being reasonable when I'm trying to be angry at you. I am not being reasonable. I am being honest. They are frequently confused. She pressed her palms flat against the door. My father loved me, she said. He was wrong about a lot of things, but he loved me. I believe you. Your heart is steady. Stop listening to my heart. No. You always say that. Because you always ask. And because the answer has not changed. It will not change. Your heart is the only honest thing in this house, Willa. Everything else, the walls, the chains, your father's instructions, my composure, is constructed. Your heart is not. I will not stop listening to the only true thing I have heard in 3 years. She was quiet for a long time, long enough that he said, very softly, Are you still there? I'm still here. Good. Good night, Matthias. Good night, Willa. Chapter 5. The Key. On the 3rd morning, Willa got up, made coffee, and called Dan. I'm not coming in today. You've been sick for a month, Willa. I'm not sick. I'm fixing my house. What's wrong with your house? Ironwork in the basement, bolted into the foundation. I need to find a release mechanism my father built into the structure. Your dad and his hidden compartments, Dan said. Remember the Hargrove job? We found that false panel behind the staircase, and he spent 20 minutes talking about the joinery like it was the Sistine Chapel. Actually, Dan, that's useful. He always hid the best work where no one would look. Inside the structure, not behind it. Check the baseboards. Your dad was obsessed with baseboards. Said they were the one thing people never replaced. Thank you. Willa, are you actually okay? I'm figuring that out. I'll let you know. She started in the workshop. His tools were still there. She'd kept them, maintained the blades, oiled the handles the way he'd taught her. Nothing. The workbench joints are clean. No hidden compartments. Dad, where did you put it? She moved to the laundry room. Nothing. The hall closet. Nothing. She stood in the hallway and pressed her fingers to her temples. Think like Dad. He didn't hide things behind structures. He hid them inside structures. The joinery, the trim, the parts of a house people walk past every day without seeing. She went to the living room and ran her fingers along the baseboards. Dan said baseboards. Dad was obsessed with baseboards. The baseboard is the handshake between the wall and the floor, Willa. Get it wrong and the whole room feels off. Who talks like that? My father. My father talks like that. Nothing in the living room, nothing in her bedroom. She was standing in the hallway, hands on her hips, when she heard his voice, muffled by the floor, but clear enough. You are tearing the house apart. She walked to the kitchen and spoke toward the basement door. I'm looking for the mechanism. I can hear. You have opened every cabinet, both closets, and something that sounded like it was screwed to a wall. Any suggestions? Your father was a craftsman. He would not have hidden it where a non-craftsman could find it. Look for the work that required his best skill. That's actually helpful. I have been helpful for 600 years. It is a well-documented pattern. His best skill. Dad's best skill was joinery, fitting things together so perfectly you couldn't see the seam, making the structure itself the hiding place. She opened the door to her mother's old sewing room, still smelling faintly of thread and lemon oil, still holding the quilt rack and the pincushion. Mom's room. Of course, he would have put it in Mom's room. The room he never changed. The room I never changed. The room where Margaret's name is still penciled on the measurements on the quilt rack. Behind the baseboard in the sewing room, original to the house, never replaced, she found a seam. Not a crack. A seam. Deliberate. Cut with a handsaw and fitted back so precisely that you would only find it if you knew what a handsaw kerf looked like versus a settling crack. Feel that? That's a tool mark. The house doesn't make those. A person does. Her father's voice when she was 9, kneeling on the workshop floor, him guiding her hand along the edge of a practice board. Found you, she whispered. She pulled the baseboard. Behind it, recessed into the wall, a wooden box the size of a Bible. Inside, a brass mechanism, old, heavy, etched with symbols that hummed faintly when she touched them. A keyhole, but the shape was wrong. Irregular, like a tool rather than a key. And a note, her father's handwriting. Willa. The chisel with the split handle. You'll know which one. I'm sorry I couldn't be better than I was. Dad. She sat on the floor of her mother's sewing room and read the note 3 times. He knew I'd find it. He knew I'd come down here eventually. He couldn't stop hating long enough to undo what he'd done, but he could leave me the key. He could give me the choice he never gave himself. The chisel with the split handle. She knew which one. The first tool he'd ever given her. A 1/4-inch mortise chisel with a boxwood handle split in 2 places. She'd offered to replace the handle a dozen times. He always said, "It's got character." Not a chisel, a key. He gave me the key to the chains when I was 12 years old. I've been carrying it in my toolbox for 12 years. 12 years of carpentry jobs, and every single one of them, this chisel was in my kit, and it was never a chisel. She went to the garage. She opened her toolbox. The chisel was where it always was. 3rd slot from the left, handle split, blade still sharp because she maintained her father's tools the way he'd taught her. She carried it back to the sewing room. The handle fit the keyhole exactly. She turned it. Somewhere below the house, something shifted. A sound like a bell struck underwater, a hum through the floor that she felt in her teeth and her bones and the gray place behind her eyes. Then silence, and the gray lifted. Like a window opening in a room that had been closed too long. She went to the basement door, opened it, walked down the stairs. Matthias was on his feet. The chains were slack, tension gone, the witchlight dimmed from faint blue to nothing. The bolts had retracted into the wall. "Pull them," she said. "They're unlocked." He looked at her. Everything in his face, the calculation, the hope, the fury, 3 years compressed into 1 second. He pulled. The chains fell in a cascade of iron, hitting the concrete with a sound like a sentence ending. He stood free, taller than she'd realized. Blanket still around his shoulders, wrists raw. He rubbed them once, a gesture so human it hurt to watch. "How does it feel?" she asked. "I don't know yet. I have been in chains for 3 years. The absence of them is loud." Loud? When something has been pressing against you for 1,000 nights and then it stops, the silence is a sound of its own. I imagine it is like going deaf to something you did not know you were hearing. He took a step, then another. Then he crossed the 4 feet of floor that he had not been able to cross for 1,000 nights, and he was standing in front of her, and she had to tilt her head up. "You came back," he said. "You said something terrible, and I came back anyway. Don't read too much into it." "You found the mechanism." "My father left instructions. Terrible, cryptic, emotionally devastating instructions, but instructions." "And you chose to use them." "I chose." He heard the word, the 21 years of obedience ending in a single verb. "May I," he started, and stopped, because he was 600 years old and had governed courts and waged wars and outlived everyone he had ever loved, and he did not know how to finish the sentence. She finished it. Standing on the bottom step gave her just enough height. She put her hand on his jaw. Warm fingers on cold skin. He went completely still, not strategic, not predator. The stillness of a man who has not been touched by another person in 3 years and is remembering what it feels like. She kissed him. In the basement, between the washer and the hot water heater, next to a box of tax returns and a pile of witch-forged chains. His mouth was cold. Hers was warm. The contrast became something else, a recognition, a fit. His hands found her waist, cold, careful. The restraint of a man choosing gentleness the way other people choose words. They pulled apart. "Your heart is racing," he said. "Stop listening to my heart." "No." He swayed. A movement so small a human wouldn't have caught it, but she'd spent 40 nights learning the vocabulary of his body. He hadn't fed in 3 years. "You need to feed," she said. "I am aware." "When did you last?" 3 years ago. Before the chains, before your father." "How are you alive?" "Stubbornness, and a metabolism that slows to compensate. It is not pleasant, but it is survivable." A pause. "Barely." She looked at her wrist. He followed her gaze and looked away, sharply, deliberately. "Willa, no." "You just kissed me in a basement next to a box of tax returns. I think we're past no. Feeding is not like kissing. It is closer, more. I would feel everything, who you are, what you feel. It is not something I can do casually." "Good, I'm not offering casually. I'm offering because you're standing here shaking, and you've been alone for 3 years, and I am choosing this, not obeying, not complying. Choosing." "Your wrist," he said, not a question, a careful statement of what he would accept. She offered it. He took her hand, cold fingers wrapping around her forearm with a gentleness that was itself a kind of violence because of how much it cost. He lowered his mouth to the inside of her wrist. She felt his lips, cold, then a pressure, a brief, sharp heat, then something she did not have a word for. Closeness. Not physical, the kind that bypassed skin and went to the thing underneath. The thing her heartbeat was made of. The thing he had been listening to for 40 nights through floors and doors and distance. 3 seconds, maybe 4. He pulled back. His eyes were liquid and too bright. "You taste like Tuesday," he said, and his voice was wrecked. "What does Tuesday taste like?" "Coffee, sawdust. The specific quality of someone who has decided to be brave even though they are terrified." He released her wrist. 2 small marks, neat, precise, already closing. Also, very slightly, of paint thinner. "I refinished a cabinet today." "I know." I could hear the sanding through the floor. The doorbell camera from upstairs. "Front door, someone is here." Matthias looked at the ceiling with genuine alarm. "Your house just spoke." "It's a doorbell camera." "Your door has a camera." "It takes a picture when someone's at the door and sends it to my phone." "I have been hearing that voice for 3 years. I thought it was a ward, a protective enchantment." "It's a $200 camera from the hardware store." "A machine watches your door without sleeping." "It's plugged in." "And it announces arrivals." "And departures." He looked at her. "This is worse than the streaming service." She went upstairs, opened the door. Godfrey was on the porch, holding a file folder, wearing the expression of a man whose continental breakfast had been exactly as unacceptable as anticipated. "Miss Briggs, I have been conducting further research into— Come in, downstairs." He blinked. "That's unexpectedly hospitable." She led him to the basement door, which was open, and pointed down. Godfrey descended with the caution of someone who had survived 450 years by never assuming stairs led to normal things. Silence for exactly 8 seconds. Then Godfrey's voice, pitched half an octave higher. "Your Majesty?" Matthias, perfectly level. "Godfrey?" You are in a basement." "I am." "There is a washing machine." "There is." "And what appears to be a box of Christmas decorations." "The ones with the lights may still work. I have not been able to verify." "Your Majesty, I have been searching for 3 years. The binding carried a concealment ward. I could not locate you by any conventional means. I had to search property by property. I told the court you were in extended mediation. I managed the Ashworth dispute. I negotiated the Eastern Territory Compact. I resolved the situation with the Kovac clan, which you described as diplomatically impossible. I handled 412 years of accumulated governance, and Your Majesty was in a basement. It was a very well-built basement. You were chained to the foundation. I was monitoring the foundation closely. There are some structural concerns in the southeast corner. Godfrey made a sound. It was not a word. It was 450 years of composure reaching its limit in a space containing a washer, a dryer, and 6 centuries of monarchy. Your Majesty, he said, stabilized into something that was either acceptance or a well-dressed nervous collapse. Are you injured? The chains are removed. The young woman upstairs freed me. The young woman upstairs is the daughter of Gerald Briggs. I am aware. Gerald Briggs, who imprisoned you. Also aware. And you are remaining here? I am remaining here. In the house where you were imprisoned. In the house where I was freed. There is a difference. A pause long enough for a glacier to advance a 1/4 inch. Shall I notify the court? Tell them the king is in extended mediation. It has been working for 3 years. It has been the most creative lying I have ever done, and I was alive during the Reformation. Then you are well practiced. I have full confidence. Godfrey came up the stairs. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, suit dusty, composure cracked, file folder held like the last solid thing in a liquid world. Miss Briggs, I will be at the Marriott, room 412. If His Majesty requires anything, and I anticipate he will require many things, beginning with a change of clothes, and ending with a comprehensive briefing on 3 years of events I will need to dramatically reframe, I am available. Thank you, Godfrey. I would also like you to know that I heard the door announce my arrival, and I found it deeply unsettling. Most people get used to it. I am 450 years old. I do not intend to get used to it. He paused. Also, the continental breakfast was, as I feared, unacceptable. What was wrong with it? It existed. That was sufficient. I have eaten continental breakfasts on 4 continents, Miss Briggs. They have been uniformly dispiriting. This one maintained the tradition. He left. The doorbell camera said, "Front door, someone left." From the basement, "Willa?" "Yes?" "Your chief of staff has opinions about breakfast." "He is not my chief of staff." "He appeared in your house, assessed the situation, offered his services, and departed. That is precisely what a chief of staff does. You now have a chief of staff. Congratulations." "I don't want a chief of staff." "No one wants a chief of staff, and yet they are essential. I have been without mine for 3 years, and, as you may have noticed, things went rather badly. I would like to come upstairs." She looked at the open basement door. No lock, no chains, just stairs, and a man who was asking permission to climb them, because he had learned that freedom without consent is just a different kind of chain. "Come up," she said. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, tall, thin, blanket around his shoulders, wrists raw, eyes dark honey in the kitchen light. He looked at the room, the counters, the window, the curtains drawn against morning light, the coffee maker, the small wooden table where she ate every meal alone. "This is where you live," he said. "This is where I live." "It is warm." "It's a kitchen." "I have not been in a warm room in 3 years." He said it simply, no performance. "Where should I stand?" "You can sit down." "Where?" She pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. He looked at the chair the way a man looks at something he has forgotten existed. He sat. His hands rested on the table, pale, long-fingered, still bearing the raw marks from the iron. And he was very still. "This is a good table," he said. "I built it." "Of course you did." She poured a cup of coffee and held it out. He took it. Steam rose between his cold hands. "I have one more question," he said. "You've been averaging about 12 tonight. We're way past the rule." "This is the last one." She waited. "What is your name?" He already knew. He'd known since night 31. But the first time she'd said it, she was afraid. And the last time she'd said it, she was apologizing. And he wanted to hear it once, when she was neither of those things. "Willa," she said. "Good morning, Willa." "Good morning, Matthias." He raised the coffee to his lips. He could not drink it. But he breathed in the steam, and he held it. And she had made it for him, and for now that was enough. Outside, the sun rose behind drawn curtains. Inside, a king sat at a kitchen table that a carpenter had built, and the carpenter sat across from him, and the basement was empty for the first time in 3 years, and neither of them was going anywhere.